Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Skelegun and I'm going to be today talking to you all about the 1973 Japanese Yakuza film, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, directed by Kinji Fukusaku. I have not seen this film before, as is my per diem. Now, the reason why I picked this movie in particular, for one thing I noticed it was on Amazon Prime for free, so that's always a plus in my book. Means I don't have to pay for anything. The other is with the release of Yakuza 6 in America recently, it kind of inspired me to want to go back and finish Yakuza Kiwami. And as I was playing it, I noticed that there were two references to this movie in that game. There was I believe one of the chapters in Kiwami was titled Without Honor and Humanity. And then also there was an NPC who, like, before he said his name, he was like it was like one of the side quest NPCs, and his name was just like Yakuza member thug with honor and humanity, and he was like a nice guy Yakuza. Anyways, so I remember that those titles from my B movie review website days, and I remember this movie was one of those movies that one of the websites I used to go on had a review for. I don't remember if I read it or not. I just remember the title. The title really stuck out in my memory because it is it's a pretty unique title, I gotta say. So, going into this film, I know that, I've heard before that this movie was inspirational to the Yakuza series, so I'm expecting it to be similar to Yakuza. So I'm expecting there's gonna be a sort of main character isn't gonna be an outright evil character. He's probably going to be a little bit similar to Kiryu from the Yakuza series in that he's kind of a guy who lives by his code. He's kind of an honorable, criminal type. That's what I'm expecting from him. I'm expecting, these sort of, for the bad guys, I'm expecting they're going to, be these sort of samurai type figures who, well, there's probably going to be some that are like, honorable dudes who want to just, fight, but they have that kind of ruthless edge to them. Then there's also going to be the sort of the ones who are, without honor and humanity, the ones who are just, low down dirty thugs who want to knife you in the back kind of thing. I'm expecting there's going to be some martial arts. I'm expecting there's going to be a lot of politics. The Yakuza series is a bit silly at times. I don't think this will be silly. I think this is going to be played very straight. I think it's going to be very dark. That's basically what I'm expecting from this kind of a darker version of the Yakuza games. So, the plot for this film is during the violent chaos of the post-war Japanese black market, a young gangster called Shozu Hirano has to keep up with the rapid shifts of power between unscrupulous bosses. So, the only other thing I really know about this movie going into is I know that there is a time skip in the film. And Yakuza 1/Kiwami, the time skip is very important because there was a time skip when Kiryu spent time in prison. He spent 10 years, blah, 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 blah. So I'm expecting maybe there'll be something like that where a main character goes away for a while and he comes back and finds out things aren't what they used to be. And it's probably going to be like he goes... Okay, so here's a little bit more of a concrete guess that I'm going to take, and I could be wrong. This is just my guess. Is that he will probably enter into this and see that basically at the beginning everybody's going to be there's going to be more of a sense of honor among thieves kind of thing going on. Something's going to happen, main character is going to probably go away for a while, there's going to be a time skip, and he's going to come back and find that all the old guys he used to hang out with, they're all dead and gone or replaced, and the new guys in charge, they don't do things like they used to. They are a bunch of, they're the baddies. They just want to kill people and take their money. There's no honor or justice or anything like that amongst them. They're just, out there trying to do their own. That's a kind of common theme you see in like, criminal movies and stuff. And you watch like true crime documentaries about, organized crime. They'll often talk about how like the mafia of yesteryear, they tend to romanticize them and say like, they had these codes they lived by, which is actually usually just, pardon the language, but it's just bullshit. And then the newer generation of organized crime is much more just like street gangs and how they lack the, subtlety and all that garbage. Even though like there was like a lot of those like Prohibition era gangs and all that stuff and like the Italian crime families, they were very there was no like honor or subtlety to those groups either. They were just, thugs who wanted to steal your money, and they were mostly uneducated and just pretty much, pretty terrible. But, it's fun to romanticize the past, as it were. So anyways, I'm gonna watch this film. I'm gonna have some of my EAS chocolate protein isolate milkshake. I made it with some ice cubes, a little splash of coffee, and some whole milk. And like I said, it's a chocolate flavor, so I'm gonna be a happy boy. Alright, let's watch this movie. I'll report back to you. Hello everybody, welcome back. I just watched Battles Without Honor or Humanity. And, it was an okay movie. It was better than okay. It was pretty good. It's not an amazing movie. I did enjoy watching it, though. Luckily, there is about 4 other films in the series. There's a total of 5 movies. They were all shot within a span of 2 years, which is pretty phenomenal release schedule. I'm not sure how those other 4 movies, a total of 5, I'm not sure their quality yet, because I haven't watched them. I only know that this movie is very popular. I don't know how the sequels stand up to the original, but anyways. So the movie begins literally with a bang. It begins with the atomic bomb going off in Hiroshima, and then it starts out in 1946. The first couple scenes are kind of chaos. There's sort of this it's I guess it's supposed to be the black market. It's, people living in squalor. Everyone's just kind of milling about. It looks like some sort of almost medieval kind of peasant village scene, if you just have people walking around, and there's like open air market kind of thing going on, and there's like at one point one of the some guys you're in our territory, and he literally just chops another dude's arm off. You have in broad daylight, you have this woman being chased by 2 American GIs, and they just try to literally just rape her in the middle of the street. And these two former soldiers, they get into a scuffle with the American GIs to rescue her. It's just an unpleasant, awful kind of scene that kind of sets the tone for the movie. Then you have main character guy. His name was Shozo Hirono, I should say, not Hirano. And his friend Shinichi Yamagata, they gets into a fight with a Yakuza member. And he goes and he's like, "Oh, Shozo, I need help." So Shozo goes up with a gun and shoots the Yakuza guy who's holding the katana, just shoots him dead in the street. So Hirono is shipped off to jail, and while he's in jail, he meets Hiroshi Wakasugi, and Wakasugi and Hirono, they get into they get caught up in this sort of lunch hall riot in jail, and they bond while they're both in this sort of containment cell together. And Hirono assists Wakasugi in doing a sort of fake seppuku attempt to, get the guards to come and get him out. And of course, since this is prison, and it's not a very good prison, Japanese prisons are notoriously awful. They don't really have medical facilities, so he gets, released, I guess, or whatever. So anyways, after he's released, something I just want to touch on quickly before he gets released, before he does the attempt, Wakasugi makes Hirono his sworn brother, and they do this little ceremony in their prison cell where they both slice each other's arm and then suck the blood out from the other guy's arm, and that means they're now sworn brothers. And if anyone who's played Yakuza knows, that's, your best bros for life now. Unless one of them tries to betray you, which doesn't actually, at least not to the main character. His bro doesn't betray him, unlike poor old Kiryu. So anyways, he eventually, his bro who gets out of jail, has him bailed out or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna be starting a new Yakuza family in the area, so we want you to kind of get in on the ground floor." Hirono gets in on the ground floor, and that's where the movie kind of enters its main sort of story arc, where Hirono becomes a member of this budding Yakuza family. That kind of just follows an arc where at first there's sort of these idealistic, and they're all just following the boss and doing whatever they say, and they're all just kind of rough around the edges. There's a perfect scene that sort of highlights this is one of the first things they do is they have this kind of gambling hall scheme, and they pick a fight with one of the gamblers. Turns out it was a bad idea. The guy was had connections, so main character Hirono, to make amends, he's like, I guess I'll just cut my pinky off, because that's what you do in the Yakuza when, there's a battle of honor or whatever. But the problem is they're all newbies, so none of them know how to do it. And he's just like, I don't know how to, what am I supposed to do? And one of the boss of the family, his wife steps in and is like, oh, I've seen this happen once or twice before. I'll just do what I say. And like she kind of walks him through the process, and he chops his pinky off, and it goes flying, and they have to go get it because they have to show it to the boss of the other family that was offended. But one of the chickens in the coop has the finger. It's a really wacky kind of scene, which is really weird because this movie is very dark, and that's probably one of the few like humorous scenes in the movie, but it's pretty funny. Anyways, after that, things kind of like there's tension building up between the other family in the area, and it ultimately ends up with Hirono being like, you know what, I'll volunteer, and I'll be the assassin who has to go and kill the head of the other family, following through and killing the head of the other family, but he ends up having to go back to prison. And while he's in prison, the Korean War happens while he's in prison. Now, one of the ways that the Yakuza works, and to some degree, or most organized crime organizations, not really so much you find with the like modern street gangs, but with the older style organized crimes, usually they have an actual legitimate business that's a front organization that they use to launder money and that kind of thing, and that's the behind, like everything else that's shady happens behind the scenes. Apparently, one of the cover organization for this family was a munitions company or something. They get a big contract with the U.S. government and do the Korean War, so all of a sudden they're rolling in cash, and the 50s come along, and then they start dealing in drugs, specifically Philopon, I guess it's called. And I had to do some research, and this Philopon is apparently, it's like a brand name, a sort of Japanese brand name for crystal meth or methamphetamine. It apparently became big after World War II. The Japanese army had been using it to, keep soldiers and factory workers able to work long hours. And it was also given to kamikaze pilots. So, yeah. And then after the war, a lot of people were still addicted to it. The German army also did similar things. They had a different name for it, but they did prescribe crystal meth to soldiers and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the Allies did it, but they were just not allowed to talk about that. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Anyways, they get into the drug game now, and you can see that basically the once sort of unified, idealistic Yakuza family is now fracturing, and I don't want to do a full spoiler of what happens, partly because it's hard to keep track of all the minor characters in this movie and which factions they ended up siding with, but the rest of the movie is sort of like there's a civil war within the family. You have a faction that wants to stay with the old boss, who's now just kind of, he's pretty much useless and just kind of steals all the profits from everybody while being just kind of a coward and not really doing anything. And then you have a faction that wants to side with Sakai, who's sort of young and up and coming. He's almost sort of a Nishiki kind of character, I guess you would, if you want to make a Yakuza parallel. And he's a sort of whatever it takes kind of guy. And what happens is Hirono gets out of jail, and now he has sort of both factions trying to convince him to join their side. Like I said, it's a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I might check out the sequels if I get the time. I probably won't be getting Yakuza 6 for a little bit because money's a little tight right now. But yeah, it's a good movie. I recommend it to people who like Yakuza. I recommend it to people who like sort of ultra-violent films where there's just like bloody shootouts every couple of minutes, and there's not really much artistry into the fights. It's just sort of this brutal, like, people trying to murder each other kind of fighting. And I recommend it to anyone who has is interested in sort of historical period pieces. This is kind of set in post-war, like immediately post-war Japan, which is pretty cool. It's nice to see movies set in that period. It's an interesting time. I bet I'll touch on that a little bit more when I do Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, which I should be getting at the end of May. I might also eventually possibly do a review of Jinro, the Wolf Brigade, which is a fictionalized sort of alternate history type anime that I saw when I was about. Well, I didn't see the whole movie. I missed the beginning, which is apparently the only like really actiony part, and what kind of what I was expecting out of that movie was like dudes in power armor, like having like cool power armor battles, and because like I said, I saw this movie when I was 12, and that's what I thought the movie was going to be about, and then apparently like that's only at the very beginning of the movie, and I kind of walked in towards the middle, and so I only caught the sort of, as I interpreted as a kid, boring parts, which I barely paid attention to. It was like on Anna Midnight on the Encore Action channel one night when I was sleeping over my dad's house. That's how long ago it was. Yeah, but apparently it's considered a classic, and I have much more refined taste now because I'm a true patrician who watches dubbed anime and thought the movie The Spirit was really cool. So maybe my views about that will change. Another interesting sort of post-war Japanese movie I've seen that I would recommend that is actual like sort of real life events and not fictionalized is a movie called United Red Army, which came out in 2007. It's sort of a docudrama type movie. It used to be on Netflix. It might still be. I'm not sure. It's about this group called the United Red Army, which started out as a Japanese communist student movement in the 1960s. They became a sort of paramilitary group that went out and went up into the mountains to train for the inevitable revolution, the people's glorious revolution. And what happened is they basically became a cult, and the leader was this like woman who was like kind of known for being like exceptionally ugly, and she ended up sort of bullying and starving people that she thought were more attractive than her. And there was sort of if I remember correctly, there was like a rebellion in the group, and 12 people in the group died, and then the rest just kind of splintered off, and they became these sort of raiding parties that went back down from the mountains and started like robbing people until like they all got like arrested or shot. It was a really wacky, sort of bizarre incident. But hey, that's what happens with tankies. What can I say? Anyways, yeah, so that's about all for today. Battles Without Honor or Humanity was pretty good. I liked it. Might watch the rest, but you never know. Also, if you haven't already, I would recommend checking out the Yakuza games. They're not for everyone. I can understand why some people may not like them because the gameplay is admittedly kind of bad. I don't really like the combat in the Yakuza games, but the stories are so entertaining that they make up for it, and there's a ton of like other stuff you can do. There's all kinds of mini games, and like even like there's like arcades where you could just play like a lot of fun old Sega games and stuff. I recommend you check those out. And that's about all. Have a great night.